Welcome to the Steve and Crypto Show. This is Steve.
I'm Crypto Zoo.
And as always, we're presented by thestevestrout.com. This episode, we're going to chat with our good friend Scott Adams. He's a indie comic creator known for the Sokoto comic. It's a cool story about supernatural and ninjas, and it's pretty good stuff. But before we get to that, what have you been up to, Crypto?
Oh man, well, yesterday I went and added a new piece to my horror sleeve that I have. I decided, kind of in honor of Scream 5, which was announced not long ago, that I would get Ghostface tatted on my forearm, and so I know the listeners can't see it, but the blade is film reel, and it was done by my buddy John Promer down at Mart in downtown Port Angeles, and yeah, I'm very happy with this piece.
Cool. Put up a picture on Instagram. I'm sure people will come check it out.
I plan on doing that today. I'm definitely going to.
Crypto Zoo 88, right?
Yep.
Perfect. Personally, I haven't been up to much, just working, lots of work, and we did start our Halloween decorating, though, which is really exciting. It's pretty much my favorite time of the year. I love Halloween decor and spooky stuff and all that. But yeah, let's get to the interview with Scott Adams, and we will post his info, his website, his social media links, and all that over on thestevestrout.com. And stay tuned for a lot more great interviews and more fun stuff here on the Steve and Crypto Show. All right, welcome to the Steve and Crypto Show. This is Steve, and I'm chatting with Scott Adams, good friend of mine, great artist. He's the man behind the Sokoto comic. And tell us about the book. Let's get right into it.
Okay. Well, Sokoto follows a ninja who he is the last of his clan. It obviously takes place in feudal Japan. And it's about him trying to stop the evil samurai lord who wiped out his clan from getting an artifact that would basically make him almost immortal and thus taking over Japan. So he's just trying to stop this great evil. And of course, like any good hero, he fails. Probably more than once, to stop that from happening, and then he's got to kind of clean up what happens next. I'm currently working on issue 7. I started this in 2012, so it's kind of a slow grind, but it is just me doing the writing, doing the art, the inking, the coloring. So all the great aspects are mine, and all the spectacular failures are mine, but I own them all because I created it all.
That's a good way to look at it. I mean, so far I think the book is really good. I dig that I dig that you're keeping it in black and white. I know you mentioned you were going color at some point when we talked a while back, but I'm digging the black and white. I feel like I'm reading like old, like manga books and stuff.
Yeah, and that was my inspiration early on. Like, I really like Stan Sakai and Usagi Yojimbo, and that's still, even to this day, Stan Sakai's, all of his stuff is black and white. I did transition to color, but it lines up with an event that happens in the book that I won't give it away in case anyone hasn't read it yet. But it definitely worked as a black and white book for sure.
All right, so I need to catch up on the book then. I think book 4. I think last time I seen you, you had 4 or maybe 5.
Yeah, I don't think you had 5 yet.
No,
that's where I switched.
But I do remember 2, the little shout out in the back of the book.
Yes,
cool. But so what are the pros and cons of being an indie creator?
I think one of the pros is that you can bring whatever your vision is, however you want it to look, however, whatever story you want to tell, without someone saying this doesn't really work. I've talked to a couple of people who have done some writing for books, and one guy I knew, and this was a while ago, he said, take my name off the book because all the editing you've done is basically taken out the entire story that I was setting up. So I think it gives you all that creative freedom. And if you're working on a team, then that's helpful, but you're also very dependent on those other people. And so it's not just your schedule, it's everyone else trying to fit in their schedule. And so that could be a con. Plus, I think if you don't know anyone who's done it, trying to do the research can be a little daunting. Like, do I need an iPad? Do I need, a tablet? What programs do I need? And so there is also the cost. I know a lot of people do Kickstarters to get their books going. I've never done that. I just pay for everything out of pocket. Because, Kickstarter, you need to send rewards and you want to follow through on that. Because if you don't follow through on rewards, people aren't going to back your next project. So I've just kind of shied away from that. Plus, I like to just be totally in control of the creative process. And that's, like I said, that's both a pro and a con. It is just me, and there are long hours. But at the end, when I put something out, it's just this feeling of like, I created this, me alone. I obviously am not the one who printed it. I sent it to a printer, but I did all this work. And I try to record my hours on the last issue, and I forgot how many it was, but it was just an astronomical amount of time that went into creating that book. I think I ended up, for just me alone, from writing through the entire process, I think I was almost at like 200 hours of just actual work. Like I would do a start and stop kind of stuff. And I think it was about 200 hours for a 24-page book.
Wow, it's pretty it's pretty tedious, but like you said, the reward like outweighs that.
Yeah. And again, like if 10 people buy my book, I'm ecstatic, because I'm a nobody. It's not like I'm being published. I don't have a big following on social media. So I'm grateful for every sale I have. And what I really like is there's this mom and her 2 kids, and I've seen them twice, I think, maybe 3 times at Jet City consistently. And they come seek me out to see if there's a new book. Like that kind of thing, even though it's a very, just like a tiny little family, that's what kind of keeps me going. There's at least some people out there who are enjoying what I'm doing. So I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can.
Yeah, that's definitely the best feeling, and does make it worth. I mean, I put a lot of work into what I do, and every once in a while you'll get that message, or somebody will tweet at you or send you a message on Facebook telling you that I enjoyed this interview, or I love when you do this on the site. And that's like, that really does make it worth it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not making shit. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to. I just want to promote people like yourself. And I want listeners to get into what you're doing. Yeah. It's not really about me, because honestly, I when I talk, I hate, everybody hates their own voice. I hate my own voice. So it's like, I'm more than doing a show. I see it more as rather a performance than it's like a suggestion. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. In my head, it makes sense. But you mentioned all the hours you put in the each issue. Has the COVID lockdown had any good effect on getting issues done? Have you getting more time, or is it forcing you to work at home more so you can't get into the book?
So I actually was hopeful. I feel bad for everyone that has been negatively impacted by COVID. But from a creative side, I was like, yes, I can work on breaks, from work, because I'm able to work from home now full time right now during this because of my job. And I thought, oh, it's going to propel me. So I was able to get a lot of not a lot, about halfway through with the pencils on the current issue. But then I got, I got hit up by Upper Deck to do another set of sketch cards. So that took precedence because that's very time limited. So I have to make that go first. And then I've had a couple of other commission pieces from other independents come at me that I always do that work first. Sokoto unfortunately takes a back burner to potential paying jobs. So I'm not as far as along. I thought I would have the next book done by now, honestly. When this started in the middle of March, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be done. I'm gonna be so disciplined. But other things crop up. So I'm still happy that I'm as far as I am into the book. I was hoping to have it done by October in time for what was going to be Grit City, the one-day Jet City, but that's canceled now, so it gives me a little more breathing room.
That's Jet City, Grit City in Tacoma.
Yes.
Which is a great show for anybody in the Northwest, or you ever coming in the Northwest, and when they usually run in October.
Yeah, November time frame.
It's a real comic book show.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not the pop culture conventions that everything else has become. It's like comic books. You come with your list of comics you're looking for, with your pull list, and you show up, you're going to find comics.
Yeah. That's one thing I really like about Jet City. And that's why I sign up every year. Even if, for whatever reason, I don't have any sales, I sign up for the next one because it is, to me, it's that real comic book show. Not to bash the other ones that are out there.
No.
But it is not about the pop culture. You were absolutely right. You get to see a lot of local, and even not even local, some people come, from other states, talented artists who are putting out their own stuff. And absolutely, there are people with, the long boxes, and you can find old books that you might be looking for. And it's always entertaining to see, comic people who are, creating their own stuff get real giddy about finding a book that they loved as a kid, kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a great show. I can't recommend that one enough.
It is. It's good. It's kind of small show. So every year it feels kind of like a reunion of like all the buddies on the scene up here in this area.
Mm-hmm.
We all kind of get together. You get to see all the old friends again, and it's cool. It's like it's homey.
Yes.
So we're talking about conventions. How has the lack of conventions affected you?
So far, not counting Grit City, since it's been canceled, but it was supposed to happen in October. It's going to be October 17th this year. The only one that I was scheduled before that was just another very tiny show. It was the one that's in the mall here in Kitsap. That one was going to be in April. I don't know if they went through with it. I never heard. I wasn't going to participate just because of COVID and wanting to, protect my in-laws and stuff like that, because they're older. So I wasn't going to put myself in that situation to try to sell a comic or two or an original piece of art. So I haven't been to any. I know other people have done the online conventions. I don't know how well that works. I don't know how that turns in for sales for artists who are trying to sell their stuff. I've heard good things and I've heard not so good things. I haven't participated in any of those. So it's put a damper on it for sure. But again, it just means that's fine. That's a weekend. Then I could just sit home and be at the drawing board, which is what I need to do if I don't have a show going on.
Yeah, for sure. So when conventions were still a thing, what, besides being able to reach out and find new readers, what other benefits did you get from the show? Like advice from other creators, stuff like that?
So yeah, that was obviously an opportunity to find out, you know, tips and tools that maybe I'm unaware of from other creators who might have been doing it longer, research something that I hadn't. Just that connection. I feel like every time you talk to another artist, they are going to have some piece of information or advice that didn't know you need some.
I think we might be good now.
Okay.
Um, Remember where we left off? Asked
Oh,
about
yeah. So talking to other creators,
yeah,
especially if they've been doing it longer or have been more successful, um, giving advice or tips that you didn't know that you needed sometimes. There's days where I've walked away, didn't have any sales, but I felt like it was successful because I learned something new from my fellow creators. Doesn't matter if they're doing comics or other type of art. I always walked away usually with something that I valued.
right. So what's probably the best piece of advice you've gotten from another artist?
Oh, honestly, take your time. Don't rush that piece. And that's always been a struggle for me. And I think it shows in actually some of the earlier work that I was doing on the book. I was just in such a rush to get it out there because I was so excited that you miss errors either in the art or the writing, things like that. Because when it's just you don't have that editor, you don't have that second set of eyes typically, or someone who is going to be critical in a supportive way to kind of make you take a step back. Because you know how it is when it's just you're looking at something all the time, you start to miss things. And that's where an editor, I think, is very helpful. But take your time. If something isn't right, don't just proceed. I mean, don't procrastinate to the point where you get nothing done. And so I've done that, and I have seen, at least from my perspective, improvement in my art and how I'm doing things. So take your time and be honest with yourself. Like, that's why I said at the beginning, the good stuff in the comic is all me, but the spectacular failures, that's all me too. And just being honest about that. I think that's the best piece of advice I've ever got.
Right. Have you had any aspiring comic artists come to you for advice?
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised about the number of people who approach me. I've had people come to me and we talk, and sometimes they're writers and they want to do a book, and then they want me to draw it, and I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. I may not be able to achieve what it is you're looking at. So don't just glob on to me because you're here talking to me and you see my art. Like, shop around, look for other artists. You might find someone who actually fits what it is you're looking for, your aesthetic, way better. And I had one person say to me, like, wow, you're basically kind of driving me to throw work somewhere else. I'm like, no, but I want you to be smart about it because this is your project, this is your baby, and it should look the way you want it to look. Because I'm an artist, but I have a style, right? And I'm not going to mimic someone else's style because eventually that will fail, or it's just going to be like, oh, this is just a knockoff. And I don't want that to happen for your project. Conversely, I've also had aspiring artists, not necessarily wanting to jump in the comics, come and, just talk to me and ask me questions. And I'm always amazed when people are like, wow, you just took this time to talk to me. I'm like, why wouldn't I? Like, I like talking about this stuff. I like talking about comics. I like talking about art and different techniques. And if I can encourage a young artist to go out and create something, why on earth wouldn't I do that? This guy, it was when I was doing the show out in Spokane, Lilac City, and it was a terrible day for me sales-wise, right? Like, I wasn't moving anything. And this guy came and he was with his 11-year-old daughter. And so they're just looking at my stuff like, oh, can we ask you some questions? I'm like, absolutely. And so he even pulled up his daughter's Instagram. And I'm like, this kid's got good foundations. Like, encourage her, please. Like, that's one thing that I think a lot of adults nowadays, they don't necessarily see the value in people pursuing their passion or art and stuff like that. So he was real grateful, like, for any feedback I was giving, and he came back after and bought the graphic novel version of Sokoto. I think, just kind of as a thank you, but he didn't have to do that. I was happy to talk to him and his daughter about my process and the tools that I use and what's out there and the cost of things, and just staying really driven on it. So that's the kind of thing I really like about cons the most, I think, is just those young budding artists who they probably just need a little encouragement and just see that kind of happiness on their face when they walk away.
Right. So what about for you, when you were the young budding artist, were there any of your comic creators that you really looked up to that you were able to talk to and be like, hey, this is my book, what do you think? Or get advice or critique from them?
Actually, no. I did not get a chance to go to any of them until I was an adult living out here. I went down to one. Yeah, I went down to one at the Tacoma Dome. But I didn't have any of my artwork. I was certainly into drawing at that time and stuff like that. I hadn't created Sokoto yet at that point. But I just liked drawing. And so that was the first convention. So that would have been in 94, 95. And so I was out here in the Navy. So I only got to meet comic professionals as an adult, and I was already doing my thing, basically. So unfortunately, no, I've never had that experience.
Okay. If you could, who would you want to show your stuff to and
Dan Sakai.
Yeah.
Dan Sakai. Yeah, I have a shadow box, if you will, of I have a shirt someone gave me at, I think 2 years ago when he was at Emerald City. He had a shirt that they were selling and they won it. And so they knew that I'm a big fan. So they went over, they had him sign it. Another friend got me a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Usagi Yojimbo crossover that he was down at San Diego Comic-Con. He was walking and he looked over and there was no one at Stan's table, nobody. And he's like, I'm going to go over there and get a signature for Scott. And so he gave it to me. So I kind of have it all in this shadow box all together. And it's kind of like my little shrine to him, just because he's the one guy that I've never met that I would really like to meet. His style is, he keeps it basic, but not basic because it's just, it fits the look of his book, and he just seems like such a nice, humble man, just good-hearted. Whenever I come across stuff on YouTube with him on it, he's just always got a smile on his face. He's the one. If I could get rid of my entire comic collection and meet one guy, it would be him.
He's I had an opportunity to meet him. I think in Portland. That don't really matter where I met him, but he was a super just humble guy. He wants to give everybody an experience when you meet him. He'll chat with you for a few minutes, and you bring your books up. He don't just sign your books. Every book he does a little head sketch or something on there. I'll have to show you at some point the stuff I got from him. I actually have something, Usagi Yojimbo, a little piece for you at some point when we cross paths again. I think I mentioned it a while back, but anyways, so at what point in life did you fall in love with art and comics?
Ooh, I was pretty young.
Is there a defining moment when you just seen
G.I. Joe
picture?
21?
Yeah,
G.I. Joe 21. Silent interlude. It's the one with no text. I had always liked comics before that, and I was into drawing before that. My older brother would draw, so I would break out my stuff and lay on the floor and draw next to him. we used to keep the Star Wars trading cards. And so he would draw what he saw in there. And so I would try to, imitate that. But for me, and I read comics, I collected comics. But when I got G.I. Joe 21, it was, for me, that was my defining moment. It blew me away. With no words, but you could follow that story. That's what comics was supposed to be about, right? Like if you took all the words, you understood what was going on. And that comic, I lost it when I went into the Navy. I had to track down. I got a copy. Unfortunately, I didn't get it signed, but I had it graded. That is just a place of honor in my collection.
Have you ever thought of paying homage to that issue and putting a few pages of Sokoto just without
kind of
dialogue?
Similar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but then I'm like, since Sokoto is a ninja and Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow are both ninjas, like I didn't want people to not understand. I guess if I did a little write up in the back, I could be like, this is the book that defined, or for me, just made me want to create comics. But I have not done that yet. I haven't been that brave.
Right. I think that'd be pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
A little homage. So do you remember the first comic you bought?
I don't. It was probably a SpiderMan. Because when I was young, he was on Electric Company. I don't know if you ever saw that show, but they would have SpiderMan on there. Obviously the cartoons that were out back then. And I remember wanting really bad. We were in some department store with my grandfather, and there was this Spider-Man shirt where he was just, jumping through and shooting his web. And he was like, "Why do you want that? That's stupid. That's comic book stuff." And I'm like, a 5-year-old. Come on. But it was probably Spider-Man. It was probably one of the first ones I bought. I remember as a kid walking down to the corner store to get G.I. Joe, Iron Man, Daredevil, and then at that time, certainly when I was a little bit older, Spider-Ham. I remember that book. I thought that was like the funniest thing, right? It's a pig, but he's like Spider-Man. Those would have been it. But certainly when I was a teenager, it had narrowed down to Iron Man, Daredevil, and Moon Knight. Those were my favorites. I liked Wolverine. But if I only had enough money to get like 2 or 3 books, it was going to be one of those 3.
And are you still continuing to read all the books?
Yes. My only complaint is Moon Knight is a sporadic book. They'll do like a 12-issue series and then it stops for a while. The last run where he was changed into like the white kind of suit, I really liked because it took a journey through his psyche. You're not really sure, is this really happening or is it all in his head? I think I really like my heroes messed up. I think that's why I like Iron Man, Daredevil, and Moon Knight, right? Like they all have problems. Like all of our heroes have problems, but Peter Parker's was getting home in time for the dinner, missing, a promise that he kept, or making sure no one finds out. Those 3, Daredevil cannot have a healthy relationship with a woman to save his life. Moon Knight's literally got mental health issues. Not to mention that he was a mercenary. He was about to die. And then Iron Man, just narcissistic, alcoholic, demon in a bottle kind of stuff. Those are, I don't know why I gravitated to those, because I'm a boring, normal functioning human, as far as I know.
I think that's what some of the intrigue about comics is. It lets us kind of like get into that world that we'll never live.
Yeah.
That's why we like watching movies, because it's an escape from reality.
Yes.
Some of our realities are pretty boring. Like, So out of Moon Knight, Daredevil, and Iron Man, who's your favorite character?
Iron Man.
Why Iron Man?
Well, one, get past with just the characters themselves, because he's in the Marvel universe. He's one of the smartest men, not the smartest, but one of them. But I also like the armor. Like I like drawing the armor when I'm drawing Iron Man. I like the different suits that he had. You know, he would have a different suit for depending on what the occasion was. So it gave him a lot of variety in his costume, whereas Batman's Batman. You know, they might change it up, but it's not so significant. Where Iron Man, you know, you got the God-killing armor, which honestly looks ridiculous. However, and then he's got like the stealth suit, like just so many different ones. I think that's what I liked because you could change up his look without really changing the story, you know? So I've always just kind of liked the look of his armor. I think that's probably what drew me first when I first came across him was his armor.
Right. That's fair. Let's get back a little bit talking about your work.
Okay.
How far we're starting? You're working on book 7 for Sokoto,
Mm-hmm.
and how far do you plan to take the story? Do you have like a endpoint for in mind, or are you just
so I don't
without really spoiling or thinking like, you know, I got 2 issues left, but I mean,
yeah, no,
you do have like an end game for the whole.
I do, but here's the thing for the way I structured and have envisioned Sokoto. This comic could go on for decades. Like, let's say I won the lotto. I had millions of dollars and I could set up my own actual publishing company and hire people to like do a lot of work. If the book was popular, I could make it go for decades because of something that's happened in the book without like restarting the character. You know, they have to do that periodically. Like they have to restart Iron Man, you know, to try to get a new generation, things like that. However, I'm not going to carry it on for decades. As much as I love my character, I do have a lot of other stories that don't involve Sokoto or that little world that I've created for him that I want to tell. And so actually, probably after issue 8, I've been thinking of putting it on a brief hiatus so that I can do some of these other stories. Because I'm one of those guys that I'll get an idea. Okay, I can't focus on that because I can't detract from what I'm doing. So I'll write it down. Well, I've got a book full of a ton of other ideas that I'm going to eventually work on, but I'm going to do them as like one-shot comics. And so they'll be called Sokoto Studio one-shots. And so they might be longer than a regular comic, not maybe as long as a graphic novel, but I've got these other stories that I want to tell that I got to get out that I'll be working on. But the good thing about that is it's a single story. You get it, you're done. You're not waiting for the next issue, you know, whenever I can get it done kind of thing. So I've paced myself. I have an idea of where I want to break Sokoto, and it's usually it's going to be after issue 8 most likely. And then just put them on a hiatus, go do a couple of these other projects just to get it out of my system, probably like 2 or 3, and then come back and pick up. But, you know, like I said, I have other stories that are like sci-fi future. Okay, that doesn't line up with Sokoto taking place in feudal Japan kind of thing. So once I get that out of my system, I'll come back and do some more work on Sokoto. But yeah, I still got at least 2 issues before I get to that hiatus point.
That's a good answer. So you made a little comment about if you won the lottery and ran your own publishing company. Let's say you do win the lottery, start your publishing company. Do you run the company and have like some superstar artists draw and write Sokoto?
So I think I would hire a good editor. I would still want to be the one writing Sokoto.
Right.
That's my baby, right? Like that's
so
very protective of it.
If you keep writing it, who would be your dream artist to draw your vision?
You know, I don't know if I have an identified artist, but someone who jumps to mind actually for me is Sarah Pacelli. She did Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man, when that first was coming out, and I liked her style. There's just this kind of looseness to what she puts out. Plus, she can get some really amazing angles on Spider-Man kind of stuff. I think she would be one I would want to tap if she had availability. I think she lives like in Italy, actually. She would be one. And although it doesn't fit quite the way I have drawn it, Chris Samney, who did the Daredevil run for a while, I like his stuff. And, it's not like super detailed where you look in and it's super fine. There's all these lines and stuff like that. He does a lot of more like a kind of blocky sketch feel, which really worked for Daredevil. I would like to see some of that kind of work, or, honestly, an unknown. Like, let me get someone who's got talent that just hasn't been discovered. Because there's a lot of people out there who are really good. They just need the chance. But yeah, that's always been a fantasy. Is I win the lotto and I start Sokoto Studios as a big, hardcore publisher.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. You could hire me to come work for you in some way.
Hell yeah!
But so what are some of the other projects that you've been involved in?
So I mentioned earlier, I've done work for Upper Deck on Marvel projects on those sketch cards. So it's, the size of a baseball card. So what is that, 2.5 by 3 inches or whatever. And I've done a couple of them. I worked on like three or four, I think. I did work on one where they didn't take any cards. So even with success, there's big failures. And I'm waiting to hear back now on the last set, because you work on the cards doesn't mean that they're going to buy them, kind of thing. So that's a project I've been on. I've been involved with a couple other local creatives. We worked on Pax Serpentis. That series is done. It was just 4 issues. We've talked about maybe trying to put it together in a graphic novel format, but the other writer moved down to California. I mean, we still keep in touch, but it's more of just a check-in. One of the other artists had to drop out on the 4th book. And then so it's myself and Sean Judy, who was the 3rd artist. He still lives locally, but we haven't done anything together. So that was a project I worked on. I've worked on another project that has not actually come out. It was that one guy I was mentioning. He had an idea. He's a writer. He wanted me to do the art. I'm like, let's find someone else, just because like I'm not necessarily the guy for you, but I will consult with you. That issue has not come out to my knowledge. I don't know what the process, what the status is of that. And then just I did some work for The Ringmasters, which is another independent comic put out by J.D. Sweet. I just did a Kickstarter reward. So I didn't work on the book. I just did a computer wallpaper that he's going to offer for Kickstarter. I did that a couple weeks ago. And then this other guy hit me up to kind of work on a project with him. It's not comic. It's more of kind of like a little storybook. So I'm just kind of sketching up some of those designs. And then I, of course, I'm always trying to produce art to sell. I don't do prints. I have nothing against prints, but I prefer to sell my original art. I don't want someone to buy a piece of art from me that their neighbor then could have up as well. Like, I just like to sell original art, but that also makes it a little bit pricier to do that kind of stuff, because not everyone necessarily wants to pay for original art. Yeah, that's about the extent of what I've been doing lately.
Right. That's cool. So where is Sokoto available to purchase online for people that aren't local to you?
Yeah, so I do have a website, SukottoStudios.com, and Sokoto is spelled Sukotto Studios.com. They can go there and they can order it. They can even see some of the other art that I've done. They can order sketch covers, because I've got a lot of blank sketch covers. If people want to commission me to draw something on one of their favorite books, either they can give it to me, or they can look at the list that I have. Or if they are in Kitsap, it is carried at the Comics Keep It's carried at Avalon Comics. It's carried at Atomic Comics down in Tacoma. It used to be at Abby's down in the Lacey Olympia area, but they don't have any current issues. So I don't know if they have any of the past ones. And it used to be carried at Xanadu before Xanadu closed. Unfortunately, that was another great shop, like focused on comics. I know comic shops need to survive, so they carry a lot of game stuff. But Xanadu was just comics, and that was a real loss, I think, to our community when they had to close their doors after 40-something years. So that's where they can go, but they can always order it from me directly as well. If they go to Sokoto Studios, if they go to Instagram, if they look for Sokoto Studios on Instagram, I think there's a link there to the website. It would just take them right there, and they could order it from me.
So on social media, your Sokoto Studios on Instagram, Twitter,
and Facebook. Yeah.
And you do have a Facebook page too.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, thank you for hanging out and talking. It was good talking to you, and we should probably do this more anyways.
We should.
We'll have you back on. We'll talk more. You could update us on what's going on with the book, or you could just do a couple episodes with us, and we could talk to some other people.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
You could be a guest host sometime. I think that would be fun.
Yeah,
I would definitely like to do that with some of my local comic people. So that would be cool. But yeah, man, thanks again. Thanks for coming on the show, and we will talk to you very soon.
All right, have a good one.
Take it easy. See, we're not going to talk about only horror here. We're going to talk about like everything. Pop culture, movie, TVs. We'll probably even talk about wrestling here. So whatever interests us, whatever we come across that we feel should be promoted, we want to give a voice to creators. Yeah, well, thanks again to Scott Adams for hanging out and chatting with us. I hope you guys take a chance on his book. It's pretty good. I think you guys will enjoy it. It's Sokoto. And he did mention a lot of comic shops here in the Northwest where it's available, but you can get it directly from him and on the website. So check out thestevestrout.com, and we will post all of Scott's info on there. Thanks for listening, guys.